good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I don't know where you are. We are going to, oh, sorry, it's just a lot of pop-ups here because I tried the caption thing. Just a minute. Okay, yes. We are here to talk a little bit about presentations today with Dr. Graciela Raga. Would you like to say something, Seba?
Keep going, keep going.
Graciela is originally from Argentina, isn't it? I learned that
Yes.
recently. But she's been traveling a lot. So she's studying in US, United Kingdom, and Canada. Also a lot of countries in Latin America. And she studies air pollution, particles, cloud interaction, precipitation, and mesoscale phenomena. So works with observation and modeling. Sorry, I'm just real-time translating. It takes a while for my brain to work. And she is now head of the group of interaction, micro and mesoscale in the Institute of Science and Atmosphere and Climate Change in the University of Mexico. Is this correct?
Yes.
Okay. For any doubts, you can either go into the chat or ask personally. It's not an issue if you would like just to make questions in between, and questions in English or Spanish are completely fine. And we really hope we enjoy what we're gonna hear today from Graciela. The floor is yours.
Okay, so I will just thank you, Sibeli, for the introduction. I'm going to share my screen and thank you. Sebastian also contacted me. We met in Sao Paulo in June, and I'm happy to participate. I think we'll see if I contribute something that is of interest to everybody. But I think, I think that we can have a little bit of a conversation. So if you want to interrupt, I have no problems with that. As Sibeli mentioned, I put this map because this has been my trajectory over the years. And when I was an early career scientist, so as she mentioned, I was born in Argentina and I spent 23 years in Argentina, but it now has been a lot fewer years than I have lived, because I'm pretty old, and so I have lived most of my life abroad. And as you see, I traveled a lot when it wasn't as easy to travel and wasn't as cheap to travel by air. But since I have, from every single point where I've lived, I had traveled to Argentina for the holidays in December and January. So it was a lot of traveling, a lot of carbon emitted at that time, and still do actually. Anyway, so if you have questions, I can talk about all the different steps that are there. But I was really junior. I was only 35 by the time I got to Mexico. So I have been in Mexico for almost 30 years. It'll be 30 years next February. So I'm ready to start packing it up and decide where to go to live, which is partially already decided because we have built a retirement house. not a home, it's not a retirement home, but a house to retire in the foothills of the Andes in the province of Mendoza, which is here. So I will be there for quite a few years, I hope. Anyway, so, but first I would like to know who is connected. And these are the things, the questions that I put forward. And I have to thank the secretary of our Alacea who introduced me to this Mentimeter thing. And he's been using it when we hold our meetings. He used it during our annual meeting of the Alacea in Sao Paulo. So you can do this with the code, which it works because I tried it, or I can stop share, get out, stop share, and share again. This, okay? So do you see the other screen right now?
Yes,
Do
we
you?
can see the other
Yeah,
screen.
okay. Oh, okay, so things are already popping up. All right, so these are probably it. I apologize because the little pointer was very small. I could barely see it with my finger. Move it with my finger on my phone, but I don't know if you use the online. So I'm sure the majority are from Latin America, and if you have any trouble understanding my, English, you can use the caption um, at the bottom of your on the tab at the bottom of the Zoom screen. You can select the captions and select the online translation while I am speaking. So anyway, so we can go back here, but I want to go to the next question is, so basically I didn't know who was going to be connected. So I didn't know the level that this talk had to be at. So I see there are a lot of people that are already quite a bit further in their career. So it'll be just a bit perhaps not as interesting, but I see a lot of graduate students, so that's good because it is. I developed it mostly relating to really early people. So the next one, no, sorry. Yes, sorry, yes. In this one you have to add some. So especially for the graduate students, what do you want to learn? Because a lot of people know intrinsically what you have to do in order to present your work, but is it anything it's particular? Because I've read a few things, and perhaps we can talk about those um, during the presentations if you have specific questions. I don't know if it's not working or people are not responding.
I think it's working. It's just a question of
Okay, takes a while.
you only have
Okay, so this is
25 letters, so
Yeah.
okay. Excellent. Perhaps we cannot move forward until we have this is excellent. A lot of the things to improve, to engage better, all those things are very important, and to be assertive, to be confident, right? Is important. So should I wait some more or move forward? I think we'll move. then we can go back. And in particular, I wanted to know if you had sort of a pretty bad experience, nightmare scenario with things that sometimes makes you not feel as confident. So that's why I decided to put this question in to see if there were unsatisfactory, and we can discuss specific things that may have happened, especially because when that happens, because I have, of course, in all these years, experienced some things that were not as effective and maybe sometimes embarrassing and things like that. No, so that's important to perhaps discuss and voice and see if we get something else. And the other thing is sometimes in the early career, they need to start teaching because sometimes during postdocs, people don't have the opportunity to teach. So then that's a very big transition. It happened to me right after I came to Mexico, and that was a whole different process because it's very different start teaching than putting together presentations, right? So if that is something that is going to be happening, you need to perhaps practice different skills from presenting at conferences or giving seminars at your own university or when you are invited and so on. Anyway, so with this, I'm going to stop sharing this screen and go back to my previous screen because now I have a better idea of who is there. So let's continue here. And I just want to share with you, because I figured that all of you were born probably after I got my PhD. So I want to, one of the things that I thought about when I was asked by Sibeli and Sebastian was I relived my early experiences, and especially the first time I went to a conference, which was in 1986. We had been doing field work in 85, and I got to present the very first morning of the conference. And it was a mostly men, of course, in the audience, and it was the American Conference of Cloud Physics. So at that time, we were a minority. I was already on my third year in graduate school at the University of Washington in Seattle, but there were few, and I only knew the ones in my own department, and no early career networks. And as I said here, we didn't have internet at that time, so it was very different. And as I tried to look and see if I found any in my office. We had those transparent slides that you use color markers and actually, retrace the figures and so on onto those, and you had to change them and hold the microphone that had, of course, a cord, no wireless. So the experience was very old, and I want to share this very first international conference I went to, the Cloud Modeling Workshop in Toulouse. And this was the audience, 82 attendees and 8 females. And as you see, I put a circle around me because I look very different. And I'm standing next to Andrea Flossman, who became the president of the International Commission on Clouds and Precipitation eventually. And there are another friend also from Germany, Daniela Jacob from there, and we became very good friends. But you don't know people, but these people were the top of the top. They had books that they had produced. So we were kind of very intimidated, and I had to present there, and because I was providing a lot of the information from one of the case studies that the modelers were doing. So this is totally changed, and I love it because there are so many female graduate students that attend, and that and the young scientists. It's really has changed quite a bit from those years, and I'm really happy about that. So so this is a few points that I put here, but that I want to discuss, and if there are others, we can discuss them as well. But let me tell you something that happened to me. Last year we had a very intense heat wave in Mexico, and we were asked to give a press conference. So I prepared my slides, and then this last February, because I tried to learn how to interact with the press, I attended an online course given for Latin American people. Three journalists were interacting, and it was like an hour and a half, and you know, very close to the end, one of them is discussing the non-effectiveness of communication, and I look up and I see one of my slides there as an example of what not to do. And I really I laughed and shared stuff on the chat and whatever. But of course, I kept doing that. I kept looking at presentations, videos, and so on. And actually, in June, we had the journalist that was from Mexico give us a training to interact with journalists. So now I am a lot more careful, and we can discuss that later on. But in order to discuss this with you, I looked at a couple of papers because, of course, I Googled. I did actually Google Scholar and found a couple of papers on the topic, and just to see what was done officially in the Scholar arena, not just my own. And this climb project at Northwestern University has a lot of videos that you can watch. But these two are interesting, and I thought, wow, PLOS computational biology has something about this. And then something in the psychological field, which is interesting because it brings up special things that we don't, as hard scientists or earth science scientists, we do not think about when we are making our presentation. So we'll go after those. But I mean, as I said in one of the bullet points, it is very important to know what kind of presentation you want to prepare. So if we start with a 15-minute talk at a conference, which is now what they typically last, it means only 12 minutes, okay? Because you have to change and you have to keep it in under the time slot. So really, you can only prepare 11 slides because you don't want to spend more than 1 minute, 1.5 minutes in some of them. So really, for my own, this is what I do. I have the title slide, and then background, data methods. I mean, these are the obvious structure in a scientific presentation. And this is what I keep in mind when I prepare it. Obviously, the largest part goes to the results. But one of the things that I have noticed coming back from Korea, from the International Cloud Physics Conference recently, is that many people read the title after the moderator has just read it. And that is a waste of seconds. So you can use those seconds. You can acknowledge your co-authors if the moderator doesn't read them, but you don't need to read the title and the affiliation again. And you can do something like mention some other things where the measures were made, how the project came about, something that perhaps leads to something else later in the talk, but not exactly reading the title again. And I have noticed, because I was paying attention ahead of this talk, and a lot of people read the title again. So in the background, we know what we have to do. We have to summarize, have broad context, whatever, how our and this is important. Sometimes at conferences, your talk is in a session that doesn't have talks on the same topic. So really, you need to put the context bring the context to the attention of the audience, and otherwise you can reduce the time. If all the presentations are in the same topic, you don't need to repeat things that have already been said by other speakers. You can move forward and then devote more time on your results. And clearly what you do typically in that context, you highlight something that is not as well understood, and how your specific research can bring a little bit more information about that topic. So you usually address or put forward the specific question, and you can say it's the objective, the goal. You can even put forward a hypothesis if you prefer, but you go from a large picture to your specific objective and specific question in just 2 slides, not more. Some people have like 4 or 5 slides, and that's way too many, even though they thought they could do them in 3 minutes. 4 slides, that's non-realistic. And usually you tend to see that a lot of people then need more time to discuss their results because they went over the time devoted to the background. Again, some of the things are straightforward. You use, if it is an observational project, you probably have instrumentation, or you can have a modeling study. Then you show all the runs, the different runs you have, the setup for the models, the domains, and so on. So you have to describe a few things, and in order for the audience to understand your results, especially if the statistical methods are not the standard ones, or if you are developing a purely theoretical paper, and that needs many times more than 3 slides only for the equations and how you evolve how you get to the point where you estimate what you're going to show the audience. And of course, the results are the core of your talk, but you need to be choosy. Many times you can start with preparing your talk by the results. And because you may have a lot of results, then you want to show them all. And that means that the slides are going to be very busy. the audience may not understand everything because you may not have gone into the methodology deeply enough to understand all the figures that you want to show. And the other thing is that basically by the time you get to the results, sometimes you've already gone half your talk, especially if you have now we have those counters, right, for the time, so you see how fast or how slow you have been talking. So really what you can do is decide which figures and which results you want to show, but then you have to revise them, and you will see when you rehearse, which I hope you do, you will have to remove some of them because you want them to really understand. And if you read the psychology paper I referenced, you will see that people will not get much out of your presentation if you don't take into account certain things. So some of the things that I use is to try to use simple figures, because it depends on what the audience knows, of course, but you have to explain what they are. And some people, cannot follow. There are 2-3 figures in the same slide, and you don't even know which one they're talking about. And especially if your talk is in a session that is not, it's an outlier because it belonged to a different area within the conference. So I recommend that you do not show all the results that you have. It's never the case. You can never show all the results because you will have to rush, and that is not effective communication delivery. And then the conclusions. Of course, this is you need to relate them, and then you can also include the future work if you have time by that. But there are some considerations that I always look at, and it's the font type, large enough for people to see in the back of the room. And I always number the slides and spell check the text because I'm a non-native speaker, so I make mistakes. So those are the things that have to be polished. So let me tell you that I still rehearse my talks after more than 30 years, no, or almost 30 years, 40 years from 86, my first talk. We had to rehearse a lot of times in front of your colleagues or students, or so that's ingrained in me. And I, as a head of the group in Mexico, I always have the students rehearse. We had seminars at the end of the semester where the students had to present their progress in the format of a conference and in English. So they start practicing and learn to think, and do the switch between Spanish and English, because it's very important. And English is the way, the language that you have to deliver your results in if you want other people to take advantage of your progress in a particular topic. So you need, if it is a 15-minute talk in the program, you only have 12 minutes, and you don't want to go over, because I have been moderator in many, many conferences, and it is uncomfortable to have to stand up and tell the speaker, your time is up, and then be nasty and not allow time for questions and so on. But it's unfair to others. So please be respectful of the time. You can do a very good job in the time allotted if you always rehearse it and keep it to the time. And I do not want the moderator to tell me that my time is up. That's another thing. If you, if you are, that kind of personality, you do not want to go over the allotted time. So what happens if you have to give another type of seminar? If you give a seminar on your research at another university or at your lab and so on, you just expand, and then you have time to show many more of the results. If you're invited for a review or invited talk, then you cannot follow what we discuss because it has to be a totally different approach. You want to do a review of the field, and then the final section on the way forward has a lot more importance. But I have always been involved in trying to mentor younger girls and going to schools and secondary schools, high schools, to try to show that girls can also participate in science, or hard science as it's called. And so that's a totally different preparation for a talk. You have to make it interesting, and you have to make it relatable to their own lives. So that takes a lot more. And usually you mention what your research is, in what field that is of interest to them, and maybe show a couple of catchy results, but not in the usual figures or that you show fellow scientists. So it is a lot more challenging, and I encourage you to try it. It's interesting to do that. But if you remember, I told you about my real messing up. So what did I learn? Anyway, so these were two of the slides. Sorry, they're in Spanish, but it's what I'm showing. It's like, very big font, a couple of details about what we knew about heat waves in the past, and one specific thing that drought can make the intensity of the heat wave larger. So, and then at the last minute, I added one last slide, and I wanted to relate the heat waves with air quality. But by that time, I didn't have time. So I took the figure from a presentation that I had given to scientists on a particular paper that we had worked on. So the journalist, when was showing this slide, was saying, well, that she didn't understand a single thing because she could not see that what was important. The figures are confusing. They're not for journalists, obviously. She didn't know what the DOI was. She had no idea what that was, and that it had too many things, and she didn't know where to go about it. So so my message slide now has been transformed into this. The journalists don't need to see everything. So that's why I'm saying who the audience is, because if it is journalists, the maps that I was showing about, the different things like the cloud fraction, the annual, the distribution as a function of the phase of the Madden-Julian oscillation. I mean, I didn't have time to explain anything, so it doesn't matter. So you can just, I could have just said, there are meteorological oscillations in the atmosphere that favor the conditions that lead to both heat waves and increased ozone. And that would have been enough for them. I could have said that perhaps because there is more radiation, but in words, not showing those figures because they don't need to know, and they were totally confused. And I am the proud owner of a slide that was used as a bad example in an online seminar for scientists to interact. So, so to get to pretty much the end, these are the 10 rules from this paper, and many of them I have been using. I always put a little heading in my slides. It makes easier for people to see it, but they were saying that rather than putting us saying like background or whatever, you can use actually as a sentence or part or a phrase that highlights the main point of the the slide that has results or something like that. So this author also mentions as the rule number 9 to improve the design, because you practice on your own, you rehearse, and you see what is it that you can say about the different figures that you have or the tables, and or highlight only one line or 2 lines of a table because you have 10 lines of a table that you got from a paper. You do not want that because people get distracted. And you have to, as rule 8 says, design it so even a distracted person can get the main takeaway. And rule number 10, I had not thought about it, but basically I never try to include animations. And one of the things that she says is also, if you have animations, for example, say satellite images, not to make a movie to see the progress of a particular feature or the feature of aerosols moving, the plumes and so on. You always have to have a backup. So recently I did have a backup, even though I had not read this. It was on a seminar or a workshop to discuss Hurricane Otis that affected Mexico last November. So I had both the animation and the still slide to avoid that disaster. Sometimes your computer will be not so much in conferences these days, but when you go to another lab, maybe it doesn't work. However, remotely you can get a lot of those things not to be a problem. And this is a couple of things, a very messy slide, but you're all scientists, so you can take this, about PowerPoint. So they carried out a survey of people, and people, what they like about PowerPoint. And they like outlines. They like the list build up one at a time, which I personally don't like. They like the fact that you can have color graphics and colored backgrounds. But when they asked the people in this survey what the topic was about, they realized that the effectiveness and the way that people remember depended on the quality of the presentation in terms of the delivery of the presentation. So that goes back to the fact that rehearsing can make really a big improvement in the delivery of the presentation, and therefore on the effectiveness of the message. And they also have this figure in this paper, and all these letters down here are different topics that they evaluate in the presentations. And what they call this is the percentage of presentations that had violations scored against this criteria that they put forward in the paper. It's quite long, but some of the things in terms of how you can understand things, how can you what they say, it's encoding into your brain the message that you see in a presentation. So as you see, 100% of the people had problems with this discriminability score, of which I mentioned 3 here, and there are issues with people's brains not being able to interpret. So I recommend you read this. It's quite interesting. But in several of these categories, they said that 100% of the presentations violated those scores. So it was an interesting paper to read. But now I want to hear your experiences, if why you had ones or nightmare that nothing worked and so on. So with that, I open to questions or comments. I don't know if in the chat we have any. No, we don't have any yet. And this is my last slide. So again, I invite you to visit our page and join us if you work. It especially you do not have to live or work in Latin America, but there are a lot of people that have carried out research in the Amazon, for example, and other places that work outside the area. So I'm going to stop sharing and see if we have any questions.
Graciela, you mentioned that you never had technical issues with the presentation not showing up at all, but I already saw it happening. And it was clear that the guy actually rehearsed because he knew exactly what should be there, but no one in the audience could see. Do you have any practical tips about what to do? Because we usually freak out, like when you just plan something and it doesn't happen, you freak out. And like take a deep breath is not something that comes to our mind at that point. But like, do you have any tips about how to actually overcome this kind of situation?
So what you were saying is the mouse didn't show up, or the presentation didn't show up?
The presentation, like there was nothing at all.
Okay, so that's why I logged in first, a few minutes before. I suppose you're talking about the online and remote seminars. So you have to have. I have a PDF prepared that I could have mailed you, so you could have presented. When that is the backup. But I have had problems. Even I had a backup, and the presentation of the animation was in my own institute. So, because you go to the auditorium and you don't know what kind of laptop they have or computer they have, and if it's going to. So clearly, I always have a PDF prepared. And sometimes I actually mail it ahead, but here it was more more relaxed kind of presentation. It wasn't an invited talk or anything like that. But I always take, when I go to a conference, I also take PDF, because sometimes there is that question of Mac and Windows. It used to be a big deal many years ago, and so we learned to do that early on. So if you're freaking out, if nothing shows up, you always have that possibility of sending. Many times when you point at something, the mouse doesn't come out, that's a minor issue because you can identify what aspect. But if nothing happens, I'd say send the PDF immediately, immediately to the organizers.
Okay. So let's go to Jimena, and then there is a question in the chat.
Okay.
Hi, Gabriela. Thank you for your talk. I'm also a student for the same institute. My question is, how can I design my presentation so that even a distracted person can still understand the main takeaway?
Yeah. Well, one of the strategies is if you use the heading. So you have one figure and some words or text, but the heading is the main point of that explanation. So you summarize your main takeaway of that particular graph in the heading. That way, when someone reads the first thing you read is the heading, and then you understand what the figure is about, really, what the figure is trying to tell you. So that's one way.
Is it okay, Jimena?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
In the chat, Margaret from Nairobi, Kenya, asked, what do you do when you do a presentation, but you get a question from the audience that you can't understand, mostly because of the accent?
Oh, yes, that has happened, of course. But being not a native English speaker, I personally have a lot more empathy towards speakers, when I don't understand. So I pay a lot of attention, and usually I can come back and say, did you mean this? What you're asking is, did you mean this particular thing? And just to make sure, and if they say yes or not, then we can go back. But it is, I understand perfectly well because, I have been there.
Well, and the opposite also sometimes happen. You are presenting something, and then you have someone where the first language being English, and they have very strong accents, and at least in my case, I don't understand what they're saying. Graciela, I wanted to ask, so times are changing so fast, and I think it was Jimena before, the name of the attendee that asked that question. I was wondering, how do you picture how will be in the future presentations? I am asking this because you see in conferences more and more, or at least in my case, just a few people paying attention what is being presented, and the rest is scrolling in their phones, and I don't know. So anyways, the question is what do you see for the future if you want to
Yeah,
grow
well,
in this field?
I did notice that that people were using their phones when they get distracted. And there are a couple of things that I noticed. It had to be, many times it had to do with the actual delivery of the presentation. If the presenter was trying to engage more people, that usually holds the attention. But of course, in a conference where you have a huge auditorium, slanted, and people hundreds of people, then it's very hard to keep. But usually there are people interested in the topic, in your topic of research, that will be attentive. So I'm not totally discouraged by the fact that people get distracted. I'm sure it happened in the old days as well, but nowadays it's more evident. But usually the people that are working in your field will pay attention and ask questions. So I'm not super discouraged about that. I mean, it is what it is. We now are connected. Before we were not connected at all. So I prefer this era to my era when I was an early researcher. And so don't get discouraged. It always happens. You cannot keep the attention of everybody. Unless you're an actor, but your main goal is doing interesting research. So there are other means also of interacting with your colleagues on certain topics, right?
I have a quick follow-up before we have another question there in the chat.
Yeah.
I'll let Sibeli to ask, but a follow-up question is, so what is going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years? What is your opinion? I think in my head, at least, it seems to be now more engaging to present a poster so you can talk with people that is really interested in your research than oral presentation. So do you have any thoughts on that for the future?
Well, it's always a challenge when you organize a conference and you get 500 abstracts to fit it in 1 week. It's impossible. In the old days, we didn't have parallel sessions. Now it's impossible, even in a narrow field. But for example, AAAR has 4 or 5, I don't remember how many, simultaneous talks. You cannot fit everybody, and then you have to make the poster sessions have to be very attractive. And the recent conference in Korea on cloud physics had a very nice setup for the posters, although the posters could not be out there the whole week. Yes, they were out for the whole week. Yes, that's the best thing, when they are there for the whole week. And then you can have several poster sessions, and then different ones are for different times, right? But in Brazil, we didn't have them the whole week. Mm-hmm. And that is something that is not as convenient, because you want to have time to see it, or maybe leave a note or take down the email and contact the author and so on. So already a long time ago, we started doing things like having food around when you have the conference, having lunchtime, 2 hours after lunchtime, to engage with the poster presenters. That's one thing. Then something I really like are those electronic poster presentations, because then they're larger and my eyesight is diminishing. So I like those poster presentations that are like at the EGU and some other conferences. Those are much nicer to me than the traditional poster. And the more venues do that, I think the American Meteorological Society is going to have those as well in January. So that is more engaging. And people know that there are so many presenters that they have we still have to have posters, and that is not going to go away. But what I also notice is that a lot of the oldies that were in Korea, many of them, also younger people in that photo from '88, they made a point of going and talking to the younger people, and we have, in their presentations. So that's important as well, to have that personal contact that if you give an oral presentation, you may not have.
Thank you. Just a short comment for everyone that is around here. So we already had other skills workshop, and all of the recordings are available in the website. Okay, so I mean, if you would like to watch, the past ones, to have some more tips, just feel free to go to the website and see that. Graciela, I have more questions in the chat. Can we go to that?
Yeah, a few more minutes.
Yeah, so Diana Vargas, thanks for the presentation. When the results are still in progress and are not yet robust enough to present, what can be presented to have a story to tell?
Well, don't be afraid. I mean, everybody knows that the research can go forward and sometimes can go back for a while. No, you thought you were going to get the results further along, and you can just say that. But I know it can be a little nerve-wracking. Sometimes the instruments don't work and so on. So it's difficult and then you don't have any results. That you can withdraw if you feel that you have nothing to present, or you can still talk about what went wrong, because that gives a lesson to someone else as well.
Okay. Kurula, I'm sorry if I said it wrong. Asked, what do you do when you do a presentation and the audience asks a questions that you don't know the exact answer, though it is supposed to be part of your study? For example, it could be a theory or phenomenon in your field of study, but you have limited knowledge of that.
Well, yeah, that is very, very common. It can happen to a lot of us. You just maybe say, if it is something that in the theory you should know, you can say, I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly this, but we can discuss it after the presentation, and then you acknowledge face to face. So not be afraid of saying you don't know. We never know everything. So that's something. Or if it is a specific detail of the measurement setup or the lab, analysis, and something you don't know, you also acknowledge. I always think that it's better to acknowledge that you don't know than to invent something. Nobody is going to hold you accountable. I mean, we all can make mistakes.
As is saying, I'm a first year PhD and I have in this August presentation for evaluation helping me. Anything that you can when it's about evaluation in front of 3 professors or 4?
Yes, of course. We all have done that during our studies. We always have to do presentations and evaluations. So I I suppose it's part of the research that you have carried out up to that point. So it is an evaluation to see if you can continue on in the degree or something like that. So there are two aspects. You concentrate on what you have done and on what you're going to do the following semester or next semester. You approach it as if it were a half-hour talk. I don't know how much time you have. It will probably be more than 15 minutes, so it's longer than a conference. So you can you don't need to spend so much time about the background because they're all in your area if it is your committee. So spend more time on the data and methodology of your research itself and the results you've gotten so far, and then move to what you're going to do the following semester or quarter.
Okay, thank you. Hello, I'm Lady Mateos from Colombia. I would like to share a personal experience. That is, when I used to start to talk, I think that my voice revealed that I was a little nervous, and it's uncomfortable
Yes.
for me and maybe for the audience. Tips on that?
Yes. Of course, it has happened to me many times. Usually before starting, even before going up, before my name is called or the next speaker or whatever, you take several deep breaths, really deep breaths. That helps calm your physical aspect and detach your nervousness from your body itself. So that is important. Then the other thing is the rehearsing. The rehearsing is very important because in your mind, you can put yourself in front of an audience. You can imagine that it's going to be a large room with a lot of people, and you don't have to be afraid. So you practice with that in your mind. And that way, you're not nervous when it happens. I mean, rehearsing is super important.
Yeah, thanks from Jimena and from Aziz. Do we have more questions?
Maybe we should try with singing classes on one side and perhaps meditation,
No.
yoga.
Yes. Anyway, just a few deep breaths. That's what my supervisor told me before going up in 1986 that morning. So deep breaths. You'll
My
do
voice
fine.
and trembles, but my friends always say they can't tell, but it feels really
Exactly.
obvious.
That's the other thing. But other people cannot tell. But calming yourself and picturing yourself doing it helps. I mean, yeah. Anyway, so we've gone over. Sorry
Yeah,
about
no,
this.
it's okay. I mean, a lot of people are still here, so it's interesting to keep this kind of topic. That's nice. Thank you, Graciela, for your time, for like making yourself available to talk to us. Like it was important, to people here. That's nice. Thank you everyone that showed up. Again, like all of this will be available at the website, and also past and future workshops also available. So keep checking the website if you think this information is important to you. Well, just in case you have more questions or something like this, Graciela sent she just displayed her contacts at the last slide. So yeah, keep in contact if you had something. Yes. Thank you. And thank you again. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day, morning, afternoon, night, whatever.
Nice talking to
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Gracias, Graciela. Un abrazo. Bye bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Gracias.